How's it going, gamers? Right, so I thought I'd bring you another video here. Basically, this one's about some of the bestest PS1 titles I've ever played. And basically, I'm gonna list 10 of them I believe should be overhauled, remastered, and come back to current generation consoles and Windows. So basically, in this list, I'm not going to include any game that I believe is already going to be remade. We already know for a fact that Final Fantasy VII is being remade. Resident Evil 2 is apparently coming out March 2019. And also, I truly believe that the state Konami have got themselves in. It's only a matter of time before they remake Metal Gear Solid 1, which I believe is possibly the most successful title in the entire series they've ever done. Right, so going off that, we're going to go straight into it. I'm just blasting a bit of Resident Evil remake, which is on the PS4, while I break the list down because it's hard to find a lot of footage for these games. So I hope you enjoy the video, and let's get into it straight away with number 10. For number 10, I've picked Blood Omen Legacy of Kain. The reason why I started with that one is because it's the first in a long series of games, and I don't believe that just this one title should be remade. I reckon they should overhaul the whole series because it was a really, really great series of games. You started playing as this ordinary, everyday guy called Kain. He ends up being bitten by a vampire. He contracts the vampire virus, if you will. And after that, he just goes on one. The game itself is pretty brutal. It wasn't a 3D game like all the others after that. It was a 2D world exploring game. And basically your mission was to hunt down the Circle of Nine in the same setting as the rest of them, Noshgoth. But you were, as a vampire, you had more than just normal vampiric abilities that you see in TV shows or you played in other games. You could do quite a lot. You could shapeshift. Instead of actually biting people, you just rip the blood straight out of them. You just pull it out of them. It's crazy. You end up seeing how Kain himself becomes the person he is in later titles because obviously, you know, there's only one more after that where you play as Kain, I think. The rest you're playing as Raziel, who was one of Kain's disciples after Kain literally transcended. So yeah, I mean, the reason why I've picked this one, because I believe it's, while it's completely different to the rest of them, it's still a great game. And it's basically the cornerstone for the Legacy of Kain story and the lore behind it all. So that's why I've picked that one at number 10. Moving on. So in at number 9 I've picked, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right, Enger's God Bless the Ring. It was a mixed fighting game featuring Final Fantasy VII characters. I really enjoyed it because I was geeking out on Final Fantasy VII a lot. I completed it a few times, and then this fighting game came up where you could actually play as Cloud Strife with his Buster Sword and Sephiroth with his long samurai sword and things like that. So it was really cool to be able to play as and against these characters. There was a few others as well in it. But overall, the problem with the game was it was a little bit buggy, and it didn't get the recognition it needed. There was already too many hyped sort of fighting game series out there. For example, you had the Tekken series, Soul Blade, which was part of the Soul Calibur series, and so on and so forth. So they were really, really cool rivals when it came to fighting games. And a lot of other fighting games, like even Bloody Roar and things like that, suffered because of it. And Star Gladiator and things like that. But out of all of them, I'd really love to see Engers being remade. Have a lot more Final Fantasy style characters in it, make it a lot more animated and yet serious at the same time. You know, I mean, you can play Kingdom Hearts and things like that, but they have all the Disney characters and stuff. I'd rather see a standalone fighting game with serious Final Fantasy characters going at it. I mean, you could have, what's he called now, Squall Lionheart out of Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VIII and his rival, you know, with the gunblades and things like that. That'd be a really cool, you know, thing to see. So yeah, Enger's God Bless the Ring, an overall remade fighting game. I reckon it'd be a brilliant seller today. Moving on. So next up is a game. I know this list is supposed to be games I've played in the past, right? But this one really vexes me out because I never got to play it. In at number 8 is Parasite Eve. Now, the reason why I never got to play it is because it was only released in Japan. and I couldn't even get a Japanese copy of it. And if I did get a Japanese copy of it, I wouldn't understand a word that was going on in the game. I did, however, manage to play the predecessor, Parasite Eve 2, and I do know a lot of what went on with the original version. But yeah, Parasite Eve 1, and then obviously the second one, if they could do the same as with that, I reckon this would be a really, really good overall of a game. It was sort of a survival. Well, it wasn't a survival horror. It was a horror game. It wasn't really survival in its own right. But you played as this girl Eve, and she was infected with a parasite. I think she was either a cop or an FBI agent or something like that. And with the horror aspects and things like that in it, with these monsters and stuff, you also had a crazy like Final Fantasy battle system, if you will, because it was done by the same people, Squaresoft at the time. But it was also in the second one, you could run around as you was fighting, so you'd shoot them a few times with your handgun, use a bit of a magic ability or whatever, and then as the enemy's trying to fire back at you, you got to move around and try and avoid the shots that were incoming at you. So it was really good. Like, I enjoyed it. I mean, when you had Final Fantasy VII where it was all turn-based and you had to wait for your enemy to do whatever, this one you still got, you know, options while your enemy is having their turns in the battle system. Today I reckon that Parasite Eve would make one hell of a good game. The way that we have horror games today, and you know, the people that work on them, they do absolutely amazing jobs. So I reckon as an action style horror game, Parasite Eve would make a really good comeback for a remake. And then obviously after that, a sequel would be amazing. Okay, so moving on. So next in, at number 6, I have Syphon Filter. The reason why I've started again with the first one is because it's part of a series, and the series itself was really, really good for its time. You played as an agent called Gabe Logan, and it was a mission objective style third-person shooter game. Sony had something to do with it. I'm pretty sure they were part of the studios that were working on publishing this game, or its series, should I say. So I don't find it too hard for them to, you know, dig up the license one way or another. Syphon Filter was pretty cool as a mission strategy game, because you had to be very, very careful. You know, you had to learn the maps, you had to know where people were coming from, and so on and so forth. I could see it making a really good comeback. As long as if they stick to the formula of mission objective based, it'd just be perfect. You could have it as single to co-op player. And also, I could see these games companies, whoever gets their hands on it and was able to do this, coming up with a decent multiplayer as well for it. Syphon Filter was a really, really good series of games, and not just that, they sold really well. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to pick a specific title out of the series, but I'd still go with number 1 to be remade, because then obviously, you know, you've got room to carry on with the rest of the series. Next up is a game I spent way too many hours on, and again, it's at the start of a series of other games, and this is Command & Conquer. Command & Conquer was one of the greatest strategy games I ever played ever, because I was playing it against, you know, people who knew what they were doing. Still though, I mean, it had 2 different campaigns in it. You could play as the Allies or the Russians, and you know, you were facing off against each other. The campaigns were really brutal, but also on top of that you had skirmish mode, which was really cool. Especially when it got to the stage of Command & Conquer Retaliation, Red Alert Retaliation, you ended up with that much stuff, and the amount of abilities you had, it was crazy. I mean, like, you could pick the British and just have the most overpowered navy ever, and so on and so forth. It was great the way that all the buildings come together and you could do all your bases, but unfortunately, the games would only ever last so long. You had to harvest a specific mineral. At the time it was ore, and while you're mining the ore, it's supposed to replenish if you have the setting. But it doesn't replenish as well as you want it to, so once all the ore's gone on a map, it's basically do or die time. You know, you can raid other bases and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it got really, really brutal to the point where, you know, you were having nuclear arms races in it and everything. The Russians, they had, well, both sides had nukes, but you also had, like, for the Russians, they had an Iron Curtain device, which would make one of your units proper invincible, which could turn the tide of battle. And also the Allies, they had a chronosphere technology, which is like teleport technology. It was really, really great series of games. I'd love them to start off again from the first one, but try and avoid what they did later on in other games. They ended up coming up with this Tiberium, these other storylines and things like that, alternate universes, and eventually they had like a Command and Conquer Online game, which was just so flawed. So I'd love the studio to go all the way back to basics, get the first title, play it out, see what they could do with it to make it even better, and then just go from there. They've done so much with the series, it's unreal. They even had a first-person shooter for it, where you played as like some soldier in the game, and you could run into the facilities and explore what the base actually looked like as a soldier. So something like that implemented into it as well would be really, really cool. But yeah, Command and Conquer, spent a lot of time playing these games, and they were brilliant. They're so addictive, very strategic and competitive. Yeah, many a good hour spent on them. So next in at number 4 is Silent Hill. Now, Silent Hill itself as a series, I've spent way too many hours on as well. The first one was one of the most horrific games I'd ever played in my entire life. I had the demo for quite a while, and that got banned because at the beginning, instead of fighting these like one-eyed clawed monsters, you were actually fighting babies with knives. It was absolutely crazy. Well, you weren't fighting them, they were just coming over and chopping you up. You had to try and escape them, and then you'd wake up. You ended up playing as this guy called Harry, and he was wandering through the town of Silent Hill trying to find his daughter. They'd just been involved in a car accident. What appears to be his daughter is running off in the distance, and that's how the adventure starts. It's foggy, it's dark, the monsters in it are horrific, and after one title after the other, they just get worse and worse and worse. We've not seen a Silent Hill title for quite some time, which is a shame. There was one which was pretty pants, actually. Shattered Memories, was it? It was just basically a Nintendo Wii game where all you did was run and have psychological evaluations, and then run and have psychological... That's all it was. There was no weapons, no nothing in it. But they did start to get, you know, back to the basics and create some really good titles. Unfortunately, the game developers were all hung on the same storyline, and they didn't really need to be. Silent Hill is something where can attract anybody for any reason and play out a really, really good story. I'd love to see him remake the first one, the same town, the same, you know, the way they've done the town in the past, same characters, same storyline, and just extend it from there. I believe Silent Hill would be one of the greatest, scariest remake games we've ever had. Don't get me wrong, I love my Resi games and things like that, but when it comes to actual survival horror, to me it's, you've only got so much ammo, and you can only do so much with it. You've only got so much health, so you've got to be careful in certain areas, and so on and so forth. And that's what it is. It's like, you know, you're trying to survive in these harsh conditions with basic stuff. Games like Resident Evil 3 failed for me to be able to do things like that, because unless you were actually playing it on hard mode, you started off with like machine guns and all sorts of things, which really let the game down for me. To be honest, you know, Resident Evil series should have stuck to the original formula, took a lot of the action out and placed in more horror and more survivability. But yeah, Silent Hill, number 4, I'd love to see this remade as a title. Really good game, spent a lot of hours playing it. Right, next up. At number 3, I'm going to have to go with Shadow Man. Shadow Man came out for the PS1, N64, and a few other titles as well, a few other consoles, or platforms if you will. And these games were really messed up. I enjoyed them. They were really, really good. You ended up playing as, what was his name now? Michael someone or other. And yeah, basically he was cursed badly. And his curse enabled him to travel to another realm called Deadside. It's like a limbo, if you will, where souls go to linger. And you were on this mission to stop the next apocalypse, if you will. It was all based on like voodoo stuff. And it was crazy, especially the sequel to it as well, which was basically you hunting down serial killers from the past, like Jack the Ripper and a few others. It was messed up. As a series of games, they spent so much trying to get the environment right and the details and everything else. Yeah, it was still a bit boxy and, you know, graphic looking, if you will. But that's the technology they had at the time. As a game overall, I really enjoyed playing Shadow Man. It was pretty brutal, and the storyline and the places you went in it, like the Asylum and the Black Engine and things like that, were crazy. I think Shadow Man would be a really, really good remake. It's not just 2 titles as well, though. There's a whole series of comics books based around this guy. So they could take it back even further. The story as well itself is pretty tragic. The things this guy goes through is insane. I mean, I think he starts off as a taxi driver, and then somehow his cab fare guy, he gets killed, and he's got all this cash. And when he takes it, somehow this mafia flipping syndicate find out, hunt his family down, and kill him. I'm pretty sure kill his family. I'm pretty sure that's the gist of the story. And then he ends up, his soul's enslaved by one voodoo priest, and then another one, and it's just crazy what happens in this game to him. So yeah, I believe Shadow Man would be a really, really good series of games to make a comeback, because you can with the comics as well. There's so much you can do with them, especially if you blend, you know, the 2 titles and the comics together. Right, following on from there, at number 2. Here I've had to go with the first ever proper decent infiltration game that ever came out in my eyes. Obviously this is all opinion based, but this is Tenchu Stealth Assassins. Tenchu Stealth Assassins started it all. You were basically one of 2 ninjas. What was the first one called? Rikamaru or something like that. I just used to call him Ryu. And then Ayame, and Rikamaru had the ninja Tao sword, and Ayame had the 2 smaller dagger versions. And basically you worked for a guy called Lord Gorda, and he sent you on these infiltration missions. You had basically one map, and you were just let loose. You were given a small training mission, a basic training mission, and that were it. They were really, really hard. They were the first type of game where when you were dropped in, you had to be really aware of your surroundings. You had to watch out for where guards were going on a patrol, so you'd get to know the patrol routes of all the guards. And you had to have a basic idea of where your objective were going to be. I'm pretty sure the objective actually used to change. It'd be in one place and then another and another. It was the first game to implement grappling hooks, which I still, to this day, struggle with because I could never use it properly. I'd use my grappling hook and then end up dying of fall damage. But yeah, it was pretty cool. I really enjoyed it. You stick to the shadows, you know, you hide around corners, you wait for your moment to strike, and then when you strike, you rip them up. You could have loads of cool gadgets as well, shurikens, fireworks, distractions, decoys, poisoned rice, all sorts of things, you know, to help you complete your mission. You used to be able to find hidden objects as well in the game, which was like something really cool. And also it was the first game where it rewarded you for doing a mission by pure stealth. That being where you went in, you infiltrated, no one saw you, you completed your objective and you got straight out of there. If you were able to do that, you were given a bonus thing as well at the end of the game. So well, at the end of the mission. So overall, Tenchu Stealth Assassins was brilliant. It's a shame that they stopped when they did. I think it was on the Xbox 360, but I really, really hope that, you know, think about the Tenchu series, how much fun and how much entertainment it's brought people, what kind of an iconic game it were, and eventually, you know, just overhaul the entire game and remake the lot, because it was absolutely amazing. It'd be fantastic as a co-op game as well, where you got to play as both characters. I'd rather them do it like that and forget the whole where you can build your own ninja thing. You know, that was just really, really quirky, gimmicky. They took Tenchu down the wrong path in the end, so I'm hoping we'll get to see something like that. Right, so finally at number 1, this is going to raise a few eyebrows out there, but the reason there's a few good reasons why I've picked this game, and again, it's the first in a series of long-running games. I'm going to go with Time Crisis. Now, Time Crisis was a brilliant arcade game, but it was also a fantastic PlayStation title as well. With the move guns and things like that are out today, and especially with PlayStation VR, I reckon Time Crisis could be a really good series to make a comeback. I'm not too sure if they're still pumping them out on arcades and things like that. They probably are, but it's been a long time since we've seen anything like this on a console. Thanks to games like Time Crisis, we ended up with Point Blank and various other things as well. And basically, it was a light gun arcade style shooting game. Eventually it became co-op as well, and they were absolutely amazing. I spent way too much money in the arcades playing them, and I used to spend quite a lot of time on my mate's PlayStation blasting it as well. Fantastic titles. So yeah, I mean, if they actually did it with VR in mind as well as the blasters you get for Move, I reckon it'd be a fantastic start to a series of PlayStation VR games. Time Crisis, it's just a really good, accurate gun game, and it's one of them. You can spend a long time playing it. It's also pretty brutal as well. You've got to be really good with your aim, and so on and so forth. But yeah, the missions were pretty cool, and eventually, these titles, the series and the titles in the series, sorry, they just got better and better and better and better. So yeah, overall, number one, Time Crisis. I'd love to see that make a comeback. Alright, so what did you think of the list of titles I put forward? Is there any that I've missed out that you'd love to see make a comeback? If so, please get a discussion going in the comment section. If you like the video, give it a like, and if you want to see more content in the future, hit that subscribe button. You'll get a notification from YouTube every time one of my videos goes live. Thank you very, very much for watching, and good gaming out there.